Most people think the scariest thing on the highway is the road itself. Black ice, bad brakes, drunk drivers in the wrong lane. But ask any driver who runs midnight cargo. They'll tell you the real fear sits behind them. Locked in a sealed trailer they're not allowed to open. You feel it when the clock slips past 12. The CB goes dead. The world outside turns into one long, empty mile. Your weight is normal on paper, but the rig pulls heavier. Straps creak. The reefer hum changes pitch. Something thumps once against the bulkhead, like it wants you to know it's awake. Tonight, you're riding shotgun with the ones who finally decided to talk. These are 10 of the most disturbing true midnight cargo trucker horror stories. If you love real trucker horror like this, hit subscribe and join the Midnight Convoy, and comment below. Which story would you never want to experience alone on a dark highway? I've always been a numbers guy. Most drivers I know keep it loose. Eyeball the load, go by feel, trust the old, she'll tell you if she's heavy line. Not me. I can tell you my steer, drive, and trailer weights from memory on most runs. I know what my suspension should feel like on a fresh set of airbags. I know how far the needle should drop on a grade, what RPM matches what weight. That night, I was running eastbound on I-40 out of Amarillo in a 2019 Cascadia. Driving behind me, sealed load of bulk dry goods headed toward Oklahoma City. Nothing special. I'd scaled at the shipper, steers at 11,420, drives at 33,100, tandem at 33,480. Gross, 78,000 on the dot. Legal, balanced, clean. Just how I like it. It was just after midnight. Cold, damp, and one of those nights where the fog doesn't sit low. Just hangs high like dirty cotton, swallowing up the stars. The kind of night that makes your headlights feel weak. Cab smelled like lukewarm coffee and stale fries. CB was barely alive. Couple of guys whispering about a wreck back past Amarillo. Then long stretches of static. Wipers squeaked every few minutes even though there wasn't any real rain. Just that mist that never quite collects. I was in that zone you get into on long runs, cruise set, hands resting light on the wheel, hum of the tires like white noise. Then Qualcomm pinged. Dispatch. Scale detour. DOT blitz at main way station. Take frontage exit at 213. State scale ahead. Mandatory. I frowned. I've been running that stretch for years. I didn't remember any scale at mile marker 213. I keyed the mic, you sure that's legit? Never heard of a state scale there. Dispatcher replied slower than usual, like he was reading something. Yeah, new temporary setup. Frontage road eastbound, you'll see the signs. Just go with it, they're pulling company trucks hard tonight. Don't give them a reason. I didn't like it, but I've also seen what happens when you ignore mandatory, with your company's name plastered on the doors. So I took the next exit, rolled down onto the frontage road. The world changed quick off the interstate. No steady stream of headlights, no wide shoulders. Just a narrow two-lane ribbon of asphalt, faded centerline, ditches on both sides. The fog felt thicker there, like it had been waiting off the main line. My high beams just bounced back at me, so I ran low and slow. Then I saw it. A small, squat cinder block building off to the right, half lit by a buzzing sodium light fixed crooked above a metal door. A single lane of concrete scale pad ran in front of it, with a rusted pole holding a green state scale sign. No flag, no other vehicles. Just that light, that pad, and a black booth with a flickering digital screen facing the scale. No line, no other trucks, no DOT cruisers. Where is everybody? I muttered. Still, the sign said open, green letters glowing dull through the fog. So I centered my trailer on the pad, eased on slowly until the front axle rolled up, then stopped when the red stop light clicked on. Air brakes sighed, that long tired exhale that somehow made the quiet worse. I rolled the window down just enough to hear. Inside the booth, the screen flickered, lines of green numbers scrambling like they couldn't make up their mind. Then it steadied. 80,260. I stared at it. That wasn't possible. I'd been running steady since Amarillo. No fuel stop, no pickup, no extra pallet, no nothing. And that wasn't a small variance. That was over 2,000 pounds extra. I popped the parking brake, grabbed my clipboard, and climbed down. The air bit through my jacket, damp and colder than it had any right to be in that part of Texas. The booth door creaked open and a man stepped out. State jacket zipped to his neck, hat pulled low, flashlight in hand. He was older, maybe late 50s, with deep lines around his mouth that made him look permanently unimpressed. He didn't say hello, just shined the beam along my trailer, checking the tires, then slowly up to my cab. "You sure you're sealed from the shipper?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, already flipping the BOL toward him. "Scaled at the yard. Sealed and signed." I turned, pointed at the rear. "Lead seal intact. Gross 78 even." He barely glanced at the paperwork. "Roll off. Come back on." I climbed back in, nudged it forward until the trailer cleared the pad, then rolled back up, nice and slow. The suspension felt heavier, like I was dragging through thick mud or climbing a grade that wasn't there. Red light flashed on. I looked at the screen. 80,480. "Come on," I whispered. The officer didn't move for a second. He just stared at the numbers, his mouth tightening. "That's going up," I called out through the window, trying to keep my voice level. "I haven't taken on a damn gram since Amarillo." He walked up to my step, flashlight still off now, hands in his pockets. "What's your name, driver?" "Mike." "How long you been out here, Mike?" 15 years, I said. "I know my weights. That scale's off." He looked past me, toward the dark behind my trailer, like he was listening for something. Maybe, maybe not. His eyes came back to mine. "Here's what we're gonna do. You're heavy on paper now. I can red tag you and make you pop those doors right here on the frontage, alone in the fog. Or you can go get a certified ticket at the next truck stop east. They've got a CAT scale. You bring that back clean, I clear you in the system." "Why not just let me open it here with you?" I asked. He hesitated a fraction too long. "Truck stops better lit," he said finally. "Cameras, people around. Safer if something's off in there." The way he said off made the hairs rise on my neck. "You seen this before?" I asked. He didn't answer, just stepped back, waved his hand for me to go. "Grab that CAT ticket," he called. "Don't break the seal till you're under those lights." That was it. No DOT badge flash, no inspection sheet, no unit number. Just a man and a scale that added weight to my trailer without adding a single box. I pulled off the pad. As soon as my drives cleared, I felt it. The truck sat lower. The steering went a little heavier. The trailer surged behind me like something was pulling backward every time I shifted. I eased back onto the interstate at 213, merging into an empty eastbound lane. The fog swallowed my mirrors. I could barely see the outline of my own trailer. I told myself it was just my head. Maybe the temp dropped and the airbags shrank a little. Maybe the pitch of the road changed. Numbers can glitch, machines can lie. That's what I kept repeating. Then, about 10 miles down, I hit a long, gentle grade. Usually with 78,000, I know exactly how she pulls that hill, split gear, hold at 1,350 revolutions per minute, barely lose 2 miles an hour by the top. This time, the engine lugged harder. Tatch dropped lower than it should. Speed bled off faster. "Come on, girl," I said, feathering the throttle. "You're not that heavy." In the mirror, I saw the faint outline of my rear doors through the misty glow of my own taillights, and for a second, I could have sworn the doors flexed inward, like something inside had shifted forward and was pressing against them. I blinked, leaning closer to the glass. The fog thickened, trailer's lights smearing into a red haze. By the time the grade leveled out, the doors looked normal again. The CB crackled then. Not a voice, just static, like someone had keyed up and breathed into the mic without speaking. Long, drawn-out breathing, then a faint thump that sounded like knuckles on metal. Then it cut out. Dead silence. I didn't key up, didn't ask if anyone else heard. That quiet on a highway at night can feel like a living thing. You don't poke it if you don't have to. It was another 30 miles to the truck stop with the CAT scale. Those 30 felt like 300. Every bump, every sway of the trailer made my palms sweat a little more. Twice, I glanced at my side mirror and thought I saw movement behind the frosted glass of the trailer doors. Shapes that weren't pallets. By the time the truck stop lights appeared ahead, orange and harsh against the fog, my shirt was stuck to my back. The lot was busy enough. Reefer units humming, a couple of flatbeds parked nose to nose, idling diesels lined up under the canopy. That normal truck stop chaos felt like a blessing. I rolled onto the cat scale, hit the call button, and waited. The speaker crackled. "Go ahead and brake," a bored voice said. "We'll get your weight." I set the brakes. Air side out. For a second, everything was still. Then something heavy thudded once against the inside of the trailer. A deep, dull impact like a body dropping from a few feet up. I froze. The sound was too real, too solid to be a strap or loose pallet. "You all right out there?" the cashier's voice asked, tinny over the speaker. "Yeah," I lied. Thought I dropped a binder or something. The printer whirred inside the building. "Come on in for your ticket." I pulled off the pad, parked under the brightest light I could find, right next to a camera pointed at the fuel island, where the sodium lamps washed everything in flat, ugly orange. My hands were shaking when I broke that seal. I told myself it was the cold. The metal of the latch bit into my fingers. The doors groaned as I swung them open. Inside, the trailer was exactly how the dock guys had loaded it. Rows of wrapped pallets, shrink wrap shining faintly. No gaps, no toppled product, no crawl spaces between stacks. The air inside was cool, smelled like cardboard and dust. I climbed in, boots scraping on the wooden floor, walked the center line, ran a hand along the straps. Everything was tight. Everything was where it should be. No rats, no hitchhikers, no stowaways. At the back, where the light was brightest, I turned to look at the doors from the inside. That's when I saw them. For handprints, high up on the doors, just above eye level, outlined through the thin layer of dust that always collects inside a dry van. Not smudged or smeared like someone stumbled. Clear, deliberate. 2 hands on each door, fingers spread wide, facing inward, like something had been holding them shut. From the inside, they were fresh. You could see where fingers had dragged clean lines through the dust, right down to the metal. My own hands left smudges lower down when I instinctively reached out, comparing size. They were bigger than mine. The air felt suddenly wrong, heavy. For a second, I had the irrational feeling that if I closed those doors again, something would be standing right behind me in the dark. I backed out of the trailer, keeping my eyes on those prints, boots crunching on the floor. Once I was on the ground, I shut the doors carefully, listening for anything. Nothing but the murmur of distant engines and the buzz of the lights. Inside the truck stop, the cashier slid my ticket across without really looking at me. "Here you go. You're good, driver. 78,020 gross." Right in the window. I stared at the numbers. They matched my shipper ticket within 20 pounds. No 80,000, no creeping increase. Just what it should have been all along. "You been getting any weird readings tonight?" I asked. "On the scale." He shrugged. "Nah. Had a guy come in an hour ago, swore up and down some state scale back west had him at 82,000. Cat had him at 75 and change. Probably just some junk temporary setup they slapped down for blitz." "Guy mention anything else?" I asked. He gave me a quick look then, something halfway between curious and uneasy. Just said he didn't like how empty it was, and that the scale operator stared too much. He chuckled weakly. "You see it?" "Yeah," I said. "I saw it." I didn't tell him about the handprints. Didn't tell dispatch either. I kept that cat ticket, sent a photo back to the route manager. Got a simple thumbs-up reply and a, "Told you, you were fine." 2 days later, I tried to pull the scale's location up on my phone, just to prove to myself it was there. Nothing but open field pinned at 213. No building. No frontage access marked. No registered state facility. Next time I ran that stretch, I looked for it in the daylight. There was a narrow, crack-side road there, half swallowed by grass. No sign. No lights. Just a scattering of broken concrete where a pad might have been, long ago. Couple of orange barrels pushed into the weeds. No cinder block building. No booth. No man with the lined face and careful eyes. I still check my weight like a religion. Still run that lane sometimes. But I do not take that exit no matter what the Qualcomm says. And I never cleaned those handprints off the inside of my trailer doors. Some nights, fueling under the lights, I catch a glimpse of them when I swing the doors open. For pale shapes in the dust, higher than my reach, fingers still spread wide like they're bracing for something. Like they're waiting for the scale to pull another truck just a little bit heavier out of the dark. You spend enough years backing into docks at 2 in the morning. Places stop feeling like locations and start feeling like moods. Some are sleepy. Some are angry. Some are just tired and fluorescent. And some feel wrong the second you set your brakes. I'm Dave. 15 years under my belt, mostly Midwest and Rust Belt freight. Steel coils, dry goods, the occasional hazmat if the money's right. I've been to just about every factory on the edge of every town you can picture. You know the kind. Chain link fence, sodium lights buzzing, steam rolling out of broken vents, and a line of dock doors like missing teeth. This one was on the outskirts of a little town I won't name. It sat alone past a rail crossing and a dead McDonald's. Big concrete box with a faded logo half peeled off. I'd loaded there 3 times before. Never in daylight. They only load at night, they told me. Keeps trucks out of the daytime traffic. Whatever they told corporate, I just went where the app told me. That night, I rolled up at 12:30 a.m. sharp, bouncing over broken asphalt, air dryer coughing every few seconds in the cold. My headlights swept over tankers parked along the fence line, their relief valves whispering little white jets into the freezing air. The sky was low and clouded, reflecting the town's light back down in a dirty orange dome. I eased to a stop at the guard shack. The glass was fogged on the inside. Security slid the window open 2 inches, breath clouding out. Company name? I told him. Yeah, you're Doc 3. He jabbed a thumb vaguely down the line. Back it in. Light'll turn green when they're done. That was it. No clipboard, no ID check, no small talk. He slid the glass shut and disappeared into his little box. The dock line looked deserted as I rolled up. Door numbers stenciled in black above each bay. Every overhead door down. No forklifts zipping around. No guys in vests smoking and talking trash. Just that sick yellow hue from the wall-mounted lights, buzzing and flickering, washing the concrete in a color somewhere between nicotine and old bones. Dock 3 sat between 2 closed doors. The dock lock light was red. Yard was quiet enough that I could hear my own engine echo off the building. I set up my angle, rolled the windows down to catch the shout that never came, and backed in on muscle memory, watching the far mirror, listening for the bump. The trailer kissed the rubber bumpers with a dull, soft thud. I felt it through the frame more than I heard it. Air brakes sighed when I set them. The whole rig settled, a familiar drop. I slid the tandems, walked back, swung my doors open, then bumped back onto the dock lip and set the brake again. Standard dance. Then I climbed back into the cab and waited for the first forklift hit. Nothing. 10 minutes. 15. The only sounds were the ticking of my cooling engine, the faint hiss from the tankers by the fence, and somewhere inside the building, way down the line, the metallic clank of something heavy being moved. Not close. Not my door. I watched the mirror. Dock light stayed red. No silhouettes behind the plastic strip curtain. The warmth of the cab crept up on me, making my eyelids heavier than they should have been for a guy only 9 hours into his day. The coffee in my cup holder had gone from hot to lukewarm to that weird in-between where it tastes more like metal than anything else. I was reaching for the thermos to top it off when I saw movement on my passenger side. A figure standing by the blue personnel door next to Dock 3. I hadn't heard it open. The door itself was closed, but she was there. Slim, maybe 19 or 20 at most, hard hat on, safety vest hanging loose over a hoodie, work boots a size too big. She looked wrong in the gear, like she'd borrowed it. She didn't walk up. She was just there between glances. 1 second, the concrete was empty. Next second, she was standing in the yellow light like she'd grown out of it. I rolled the passenger window down a few inches. Cold air knifed in, towing the smell of wet concrete and exhaust. She didn't come closer. She just pointed. First at my trailer. Slow. Deliberate. Then at me. Her arm moved like it was heavier than it should be. She shook her head once. Very slowly. No sound. I leaned over the seat, squinting. You loading me or what? I called. She didn't react to my voice. Her lips moved, shaping words with care, like each one hurt. I read them more than heard them. Don't take it. The hairs on my arms rose under my jacket. Before I could say anything else, the dock door behind my cab rattled. The whole truck shivered as the overhead door rolled up, metal slats clattering in their tracks. Light flooded into the trailer from behind me, bright white from forklift headlights. The dock lock clunked and the red light at the back of my trailer flipped to green. I jerked my head around to check my mirror, watching for the first forklift nose poking into the trailer. In that second, she disappeared. Not walked away, not opened the door, just gone. No slam, no creak. One blink she was under that yellow light, eyes on mine. Next blink, there was nothing but the blue door and a damp patch of wall where her shadow should have been. The forklift hit came like a gunshot. Forks smacking into pallet wood, brakes squealing, the body of the trailer shaking as the first load came in hot. Whoever was on that lift was driving angry, ramming the product home, backing out fast enough to make the whole rig rock. I grabbed my phone. Notification banner from dispatch lit up the screen. Do not refuse load. Time sensitive. Priority customer. My mouth went dry. I thumbed the call button instead of texting. Night dispatch picked up on the second ring. Lines buzzing in the background. Yeah, this place is weird tonight, I said. Nobody talked to me, no dock boss, and they were supposed to load mixed pallets. I want to see what they're throwing in there before I sign. We need that load, Dave, he cut in. Client flagged it critical. They've had drivers walk before, we're on thin ice. Get your BOL, get rolling. If there's damage, we'll fight it out with claims later. Another slam from the back. Boxes rattling, trailer flexing. And if the trailer tips over before I get there? I asked. He sighed, exasperated. You're a professional. Drive like one. I gotta go. Line went dead. CB hissed quietly, picking up nothing. The pounding continued. Pallet after pallet, fast and aggressive. No pause, no bump the dock call. No dock guy tapping to let me know they were wrapping up. Just the machine rhythm of a warehouse that had somewhere else to be. 10, 15 minutes. Then all at once, silence. Dock light flipped back to red. Air ride hissed as the lock released. Climbed down, paperwork clipboard under my arm. The concrete felt slicker than it should have under my boots, like there was a thin film of something on it. Maybe oil, maybe just my nerves. The blue personnel door creaked open as I walked past. A man in a high-vis vest stepped out, barcode scanner clipped to his belt, tablet in hand. Mid-40s, tired eyes, beard starting to gray. Supervisor, by the way he moved, like everything irritated him. He held the tablet out. David? Company hashtag, 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 hashtag. Yeah. Sign here. You're good. I scanned the load sheet. All electronics. TV sets, monitors, small appliances. Total weight matched the tender. Dock 3. Load time 0:41. No notes. No exceptions. I signed anyway. My name scratched itself on the screen. Hey, I said, handing it back. Who was the new girl on this shift? He frowned. What girl? The one on break or whatever by the blue door. Hard hat, vest, young. Brown hair pulled back. I gestured at the empty spot where she'd been. About this tall. He glanced at the door like he expected to see someone there. Nothing but paint and a safety sign. We don't have any new hires, he said. Not on nights. Not for months. The way he said it wasn't defensive. Just flat. Maybe temp agency? I pushed. She told me not to take the load. Could be a disgruntled. His eyes sharpened. She said that. Yeah. Don't take it. He stared at me for a second longer than was comfortable. Then he shook his head, like he was physically pushing the thought away. Look, man, he muttered, all business again. Your bills are clean. Products strapped. If you don't want the freight, call your company. I got 6 more trucks to get out. He turned and went back inside. The door closed behind him with a soft click. The break room was just inside that door. I knew from my last visit. I don't know why I followed. Maybe I wanted a coffee. Maybe I just wanted to be around people for a second before heading back into the dark. Inside, the air was warm and stale: coffee, microwave dinners, industrial cleaner. A vending machine hummed against one wall, its fluorescent guts making the chips and candy look radioactive. Plastic tables sat empty. A couple of high-vis vests slung over chair backs, forgotten. On the wall by the machine, framed photos hung in a neat little cluster. Company picnic. A trophy softball team. Holiday party from a decade ago. Everyone wearing bad sweaters and forced smiles. And one picture in its own frame. The girl from the dock. No hard hat. No vest. Just a plain t-shirt, hair down. Smiling with 2 coworkers in front of a forklift. Young. Alive. A little tired around the eyes. Like she'd already learned what working nights does to you. Under the frame, a small brass plaque. In loving memory of Emily Carter, killed in a forklift incident at dock October 3rd, 3 years ago today. My throat went tight. I checked the date in the corner of my phone screen. October 17th. The break room humming, the vending machine, the faint sound of a forklift backing up somewhere beyond the wall. Beep, beep, beep. Suddenly felt very far away. I walked back out without buying anything. The supervisor glanced up as I passed. Didn't say a word. Outside, my truck sat under the buzzing lights, exhaust ghosting into the night. The dock lock was off. The trailer felt heavy just looking at it. On instinct, I popped the handle on the driver's side and pulled the door open a crack. The dock plate had already been pulled. The gap between trailer floor and concrete was black and deep. I thought about breaking the seal and looking inside. Then I thought about the text on my phone. Do not refuse load. I thought about a 19-year-old girl pointing at my trailer, telling me not to take it. I thought about pallet corners and forklift blades and how fast a box can crush a skull if it falls the wrong way. Instead of swinging the doors, I set my jaw, hooked up, and pulled away. As soon as the trailer cleared the dock, I felt it. The way it leaned. Not enough to be illegal, not enough to be obvious from the outside. But I've hauled enough top-heavy freight to know when the center of gravity isn't where it's supposed to be. My steering will talk to me all the way to the gate. Every little bump on that broken yard pavement made the trailer sway just a hair too long. The guard barely glanced up as he hit the button to open the barrier. "Have a good one," he mumbled, eyes on his TV. "Yeah," I said. "You too." The road out of the plant ran downhill to a stop sign, then curved hard right onto the main drag. Normally, I'd roll that curve at a comfortable pace, let the trailer follow like it always does. That night, something in my gut told me otherwise. I dropped a gear and took it slow, ridiculously slow, 4-way flashers slow. Halfway through the turn, I felt the whole rig lean. Not the normal shift of suspension taking a set, but an extra tug as the top of the load tried to keep going straight. If I'd taken that curve at my usual speed, I don't think I'd be here telling you this. Once I got her straight on the highway, I didn't go far. First well-lit truck stop. I pulled in, backed into a slot under a pole light, and sat there for a long time with my hands on the wheel. Company policy says you don't break a sealed high-value load unless there's visible damage or law enforcement tells you to. Eventually, I decided I'd rather argue with a manager than a paramedic. I cut the seal. Metal snapped, echoing in the cold. When I swung the doors open, the smell of cardboard and cold plastic rolled out. Nothing else. No blood, no rot, no ghost. But the load, they'd double-stacked and triple-stacked product all the way to the roof. Tall, narrow pallets with heavy boxes on top, shrink wrap barely clinging on. A couple were already leaning, edges pressed up against the wall hard enough to bow the cardboard. One ratchet strap near the front had snapped clean, recoil scarring the wood. I imagined a forklift hitting one of those stacks too hard on the dock. Pallets tipping forward, dominoing into the gap, nobody clearing out fast enough. Don't take it. I spent an hour in that trailer with a pallet jack and extra straps, sweating in the cold, muscles burning as I pulled weight down and tied it back. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than the death trap they'd thrown at me. When I finally rolled out onto the interstate, the trailer pulled straight. The steering wheel went quiet. I made the delivery without incident. The receiver signed, asked no questions, broke down the load, sent me on my way. Back home a week later, I got bored and did what you shouldn't do. I looked that factory up. OSHA report, 3 years old. Young female worker pinned between a trailer and a forklift load at Dock 3. Overnight shift. Crushed when a stack of pallets tipped off the forks and pushed her into the metal. The report listed contributing factors: improper stacking, excessive speed, night shift understaffed, no fault of her own. I don't know why she chose to show up that night, why she picked me. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she's there for every truck, and I'm just the idiot who listened. All I know is this: every time I back into a dock now, especially at some half-dead factory under bad lights, I watch for people who don't quite belong. The ones who stand too still. The ones whose boots don't fit right. The ones who mouth warnings you can barely hear. If one of them ever tells you not to take the load, listen. You drive nights long enough, you start to trust the noise. Engines, wind, CB chatter, reefer unit cycling. There's a comfort in that constant hum. It means the world's still moving around you. Whatever bad thoughts creep in at 3 in the morning get drowned out by diesel and static. The nights that get under your skin are the quiet ones. Name's Carl. I haul auto parts out of the Midwest. Axles, transmissions, tubs of fasteners, all the stuff nobody thinks about until something breaks. I've been running the same general stretch of highway for years. Most nights, it's wall-to-wall with freight. Reefers whistling, dry vans swaying, flatbeds with tarps snapping in the crosswind. This night wasn't like that. It was a little after midnight, late summer, air just starting to lose the day's heat. I was eastbound, trailer loaded high with box parts, grossing about $78,500. The sky was clear and the moon hung low over the cornfields. Big, yellow, and close, like it had sunk down just for the night shift. My dash glowed soft orange. The cab smelled like stale coffee and the last sandwich I'd grabbed at a fuel island 2 hours earlier. Vibration came up through the floor and into my heels. That steady buzz you stop noticing until something changes. What I noticed first was how alone I was. No taillights stretching out ahead. No oncoming high beams. No cluster of running lights in the mirrors. Just my truck, my trailer, my headlights cutting 2 pale lanes through the rows of corn. Channel 19, usually full of guys moaning about dispatch or swapping scalehouse rumors, was dead. Not even a faint voice in the distance. Just a low hiss behind the squelch. My clock ticked over to 12:17 a.m. I felt that familiar grit behind my eyes. I wasn't out of hours and I wasn't nodding off, but I had that heavy brain feeling that says, find a place to stop. Take 20. Reset your head. The green sign floated up out of the dark on the right. Exit 47, rest area 1 mile. I knew it. Old one. Been there as long as I'd been running the lane. 2 driveways, car side and truck side, 1 bathroom building, couple of vending machines that sometimes worked. I remembered potholes big enough to hide a steer tire and lights that buzzed more than they shone. I figured it would be half full. Guys grabbing their 8, reefers idling, a couple of flatbeds parked wide so nobody boxed them in. The off-ramp curved up and over, then fed into the rest area loop. As soon as my wheels left the interstate, I could tell they hadn't put money into this place in a long time. Pavement was cracked and crazed, silver grass growing out of the seams. The paint that used to mark the truck stalls had faded to ghost lines. 1 overhead light near the entrance flickered, throwing a slow strobe over the lot. I rolled through on low idle. No trucks, no four-wheelers. No one pulled up by the picnic tables, no RVs running generators, nothing coming or going. I checked the dark for running lights tucked into corners. Saw none. Guess it's my hotel, I muttered. I picked a spot near the exit end of the loop, nose pointed toward the ramp for a clean rollout. Habit. Parked where the bathroom building was still in sight off my driver's side, about 100 yards away. The structure sat under a row of dim sodium lamps, windows black, no movement. I set the brakes. Air sighed out, that long, tired exhale. The engine ticked as it cooled. Without the hum of highway under the tires, the silence pressed in fast. I killed the headlights but left the marker lights on. The cab dimmed to just the glow of the dash. My fridge hummed. Somewhere in the back, a plastic hanger creaked as the truck settled. Out there, beyond the glass, nothing moved. Just bugs hitting the windshield now and then with soft taps. Drawn to the little bit of light left on my dash. I clicked the CB volume down, more out of habit than anything. Set the squelch where I usually did. White noise tucked itself quietly into the background. I leaned my seat back, loosened my belt, and let my eyes sag shut. I told myself I'd close them for 10 minutes. No alarm, just a quick reset. I don't think I was out more than 30 seconds before the CB came alive. Not ramping, not a burst of static and then a voice. Just a voice. Clear, sharp, like someone had been talking the whole time and I'd only now tuned in. Driver in the blue Cascadia at exit 47. My eyes snapped open. The cab was still dark. CB display a faint green rectangle on the dash. Speaker clear as if it was right next to my ear. You need to leave. Now. Every bit of sleep burned out of me in an instant. There were plenty of Cascadias on the road. But tonight, in that empty lot, I was the only truck. Mine was the only blue one for miles. I reached for the mic, fingers suddenly clumsy. "You talking to me?" I said. Silence. A long scrape of static like someone breathing too close to the mic. Then the voice came back, more strained this time, like it had to push through something. "You got about 30 seconds, for he gets to your door." The words landed in my chest like ice. No shout, no panic, just flat warning. I scanned the mirrors. Driver's side, passenger, convex. Nothing but the lot, the glow from the bathroom building, and the black tree line beyond the ditch. "Who?" I said. My voice sounded too loud in the cab. "Who's he?" Static hissed, not empty. More like a crowd whispering from very far away. It rose and fell. Then the voice cut through again. "Don't look at him. Just roll." That did something to me that hours of white-knuckle winter driving never has. I didn't argue. Didn't ask for proof. The tone in that voice, tired, urgent, like someone giving last-chance instructions, skipped right over my skepticism. I jammed the key into the slot and twisted. Starter engaged, engine barked, caught, and roared back to life. The cab vibrated, glass buzzing. As air pressure came up, the hairs on the back of my neck rose. I had the heavy, crawling sensation of being watched. Not from one direction, from all of them, like the air outside the cab had thickened around me. I kept my eyes on the gauge cluster. Oil pressure good, volts good, primary tank climbing. Outside, somewhere to my left, gravel crunched. Slow, deliberate. My hand moved to the window switch on instinct. Then I remembered the voice. "Don't look at him." I left the glass up. Air pressure hit the line I needed. I dropped the parking brake, felt the truck settle forward that tiny bit. Into gear, gentle on the throttle. The Cascadia eased out of the spot, tires cracking little flakes of old asphalt. Whatever was in that gravel kept pace with my door. Not fast, just matching me. I stared straight ahead. Light from the dying pole lamps smeared across the hood. The bathroom building slid slowly out of my peripheral vision. The CB stayed quiet now. No more warnings. Just low static, a faint pulse under the engine's growl. My hands were slick on the wheel. I wiped one on my jeans and immediately regretted taking it off. Even with the windows up and the engine running, I could hear it when whatever was out there stopped walking. Right by where my cab had been parked. For a heartbeat, I felt the steering go loose, like the front tires had rolled onto ice. Then it caught again. The exit ramp approached, curling back toward the interstate. Once my nose pointed toward the ramp, that crawling feeling on my neck eased. Not gone, just behind me now, focused on my rear. I should have done what he said. Just rolled. Ice front. No questions. I merged onto the ramp, hit the top, and checked for traffic. Empty westbound, empty eastbound. I started to swing the trailer out, Light from my mirror strobed as I passed under the last of the rest area lights. And I looked, just once. Quick glance into the driver's mirror. I don't know if it was habit or ego or just plain stupidity. My spot was still visible. A dark rectangle of broken pavement under a failing lamp. And something was standing in it. At a glance, it read as a man, but the proportions were wrong. Too tall. Shoulders too narrow. Arms long enough that the hands hung near mid-thigh. It was blacker than the shadows around it, like it absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Its head was tilted, not a normal curious lean, but a sharp angle, like its neck had been pushed beyond what bones were meant to do and just stayed that way. Even from that distance, even in the jittery half-light, I knew it was looking at me. Couldn't see eyes, just the focus, the way its body oriented toward my mirror as I moved. My stomach lurched. I snapped my gaze back to the road so fast my neck popped. The next sign I passed lit up in my headlights. Exit 49 to 2 miles. I realized I was breathing hard, little clouds fogging the inside of my windshield despite the AC. I turned the fan up, more for the noise than the air. Channel 19 hissed quietly. Normal now, just background cosmic static. Hey! I tried, voice shakier than I liked. Whoever that was at 47. You still on? Nothing. I rolled through the next 20 miles with the radio off and both hands glued to the wheel. I passed 2 trucks headed the other way, both of them throwing enough light to prove the world still existed outside my lane. Eventually, the adrenaline dump faded. My heart came back down. My thoughts rearranged themselves into something like logic. Maybe it was some local ragshoer playing games. Maybe the thing I saw was a light pole, a tree, my tired brain making shapes out of nothing. Maybe the rest area wasn't as empty as I'd thought, and some bored cop was trying to spook me out for safety reasons. Then the clerk at the truck stop killed those maybes one by one. I pulled into a busy Petro an hour down the road, parked under bright LED lights, engines idling all around me, the smell of hot grease and fryer oil pouring out of the restaurant's side. Inside, I bought fuel, grabbed a new logbook, and added a coffee I didn't really want just to have an excuse to stand at the counter while my hands steadied. The kid at the register scanned my stuff without really looking up. Company shirt, name tag barely hanging on. Hey, I asked, casual as I could. You run this stretch much? Eastbound? You know that rest area at exit 47? He stopped mid-reach, slowly lifted his eyes to mine. You mean the old one? He said. Yeah, pulled in there tonight. Place was dead. Kinda creepy. He frowned. Exit 47's been closed, man. I laughed once. Came out wrong. Closed like nobody uses it? Or closed like they tore it down? Closed like they shut the ramps and chained the entrances, he said. State did it after the thing with the driver. 10 years ago? Before I was here. But, he shrugged. You can see the barricades from the highway. Most guys just hit 52 or 41 now. My mouth went dry. I took the ramp, I said slowly. Sign was lit. Lot was beat up. But, open. He shook his head. There's no power to those lights. They cut it after the incident. My uncle used to drive. He told me about it. Guy got found in his truck there. Blue Cascadia, he said. He paused, noticing my hat logo, the color of my jacket. Door wide open, CB mic in his hand. Face. He hesitated. They said it looked like he'd been scared to death. The phrase sounded stupid when he said it out loud, like something out of a bad movie. But my skin crawled anyway. What happened to the truck? I asked. Company towed it. Rumor is, they scrapped it instead of reselling. He slid my receipt across the counter. You okay, man? You look kinda pale. Did anyone ever say why he called out? I pushed. The clerk blinked. Called out. My uncle said they found the mic in his hand like he tried to warn someone on 19. He added after a second, like he was dredging up an old story. But no one answered. Channel was dead. Guess you never know if anyone's actually listening, right? On the walk back to my truck, the lot noise felt louder than before. Reefers cycled. Air brakes barked. Tires crunched gravel. Normal sounds. Good sounds. I climbed up into my blue Cascadia, shut the door, and let the seals thump it closed. Sat there for a while with my hands on the wheel, watching other drivers move through the lot, living their own little midnights. The CB sat quiet on the dash. Channel 19 LED glowed, needle resting at 0. Sometimes I reach up, thumb the knob, and think about switching it off for good. I never do. If a dead man burned his last breath trying to crackle through that speaker and warn whoever came after him, maybe the least I can do is leave it on. And if you ever find yourself bone-tired, staring at a sign for exit 47 and thinking a forgotten rest area sounds like a quiet place to nap, keep rolling. If you pull in and someone on 19 knows the color of your truck before you even key up, don't look at him, just roll. Most people who see flatbeds rolling down the interstate just see steel and straps. They don't see the hours in some frozen mill yard at midnight, fighting tarps in a crosswind, or the way your hands smell like rust and chain lube for 2 days after. They don't see the math you do in your head every time you hit a scale. Axle splits, bridge laws, permit weights, all of it. Name's Tom. I've been hauling steel coils out of the same Midwest mill for close to a decade. Night shift mostly. It's a dirty, loud, always behind place that runs 24/7 and still never seems caught up. You spend enough time there, you can tell what shift the ladle's on just by the color of the smoke. That night, the mill was running late. Nothing new. The air in the yard was thick with that mix of hot metal, wet concrete, and burnt oil. Floodlights mounted on leaning poles turned the steam into glowing curtains that drifted across the cracked asphalt. Forklifts beeped somewhere in the maze of stacks, their backup alarms lost under the echo of banging steel. I was in my usual spot near the loading bay, chains laid out neatly, edge protectors stacked on the deck. They dropped 6 big coils on me, nested in the well like giant steel donuts, each one banded and chalked. I threw 4 chains across each, binders tight, checked every hook twice. Then came the tarp-thick, cold vinyl that fought me like a living thing as I dragged it over the metal and tied it down under the rub rails. By the time I was done fiddling with my straps and tarp, as dispatch likes to call it, my fingers were numb inside my gloves and my breath came out in little white bursts under the yellow yard lights. The clock on my dash read 11:52 p.m. I rolled out heavy, 82,000 pounds on the permit, legal enough for the route we'd pulled. Truck felt it too. The engine had that deep, satisfied pull when I eased onto the throttle, suspension giving that extra little squat over the yard's potholes. The state scale wasn't far. Maybe 8 miles up the highway. I've always hated scales, everyone does. But that one was routine. In and out, follow the arrows, listen to the bored automated voice tell you where to stop. The highway was empty. Just my headlights reflecting off the green of overhead signs. The hiss of wet pavement under the tires, a faint mist drifting in low from the fields. CB on 19 squelch set where I like it. A couple of distant voices talking about a wreck back west. Then static. As the scale house lights came into view, white, harsh, sterile against the dark, I felt that familiar little tightening in my chest. Doesn't matter how long you've been out. There's always that tiny part of you that wonders if you messed up the math. I slowed to posted speed, followed the painted arrows into the way lanes. The pads under the wheels felt different, solid, dead, no give. The sign over the lane flashed. Steer axle, stop. I eased up until the front tires settled on the first pad. Air brake side. The automated voice came through the speaker, tinny and bored. Steer axle weight recorded. Pull forward. I rolled up again, drives on the next pad. Then the trailer tandems. Each time, the same routine. Pause. Stop. Horn honk from the scale shack telling me they'd got the reading. Proceed to scale house, the speaker said finally. Do not exit vehicle until instructed. Tandems looked good in my mirrors. Tarp was tight. Chains hadn't shifted. I rolled forward to the stop line near the little concrete building and set my brakes. The clerk behind the glass was a guy I'd seen 100 times. Late 40s, hairline losing the battle, reflective vest thrown over a flannel shirt. He stared at his screen for a while, frowning, then picked up the mic. Driver on scale 3, pull around and park in the inspection lane. Bring your paperwork inside. My gut sank. I pulled into the lot, found the faded inspection stencil on the pavement, and set the brakes again. The engine ticked as it cooled. Out here under the floodlights, every speck of road grime on my hood showed up in sharp detail. Inside the scale house, it was warmer than it had any right to be. Smelled like burnt coffee and printer toner. The clerk slid a slip across the counter toward me. "You running some kind of specialized gear?" he asked. I took the printout. The numbers lined up like they usually do. Steer axle, 12,180 drive axle, 34,220 trailer tandems, 35,600. Then, below those, a line that shouldn't have been there. Axle group 4 to 6,540. I blinked. "You got a fourth pad I missed?" I joked, trying to keep it light. He didn't laugh. "You hauling doubles I can't see?" he said. "Some kind of booster axle that lifts?" "Standard 3-axle tractor. Tandem flat," I said. "You can walk it yourself. I'm not hiding a train out there." He looked at the screen again, then at me. "Software says you crossed for groups. Total gross comes in high with that phantom one. Technically puts you over your permitted weight. I gotta have DOT take a look or it's my ass." My jaw clenched. "So, your machine hiccups and I get a ticket?" He shrugged, the tired kind that says he's had this argument before. "Park in the lane. Officer'll be out in a minute." Back outside, the night felt colder than it had 10 minutes ago. The floodlights above the inspection lane washed everything in hard white. No shadows, no places for problems to hide. A DOT officer came out of the side door. Tall guy, clean uniform, hat angled just so. Clipboard in hand. The kind who's seen it all and doesn't rush for anything. He walked slow circles around my rig, boots crunching on the salt they'd scattered on the concrete. I watched him in my mirror. 1, 2, 3 axles. He counted under his breath as he went by. Tractor tandems, trailer tandems. That's it. He had me roll forward in little bites. "Stop. Hold. Okay. Move." He watched from the side, hands on his hips, as my wheels hit each pad in turn. When we'd done the dance, he motioned me to set the brakes and walked back to the house. I met him inside. "Weighed you twice," he said, scratching something on his clipboard. "Same numbers. 3 physical groups plus 1 the system insists you have. Axle group 4 at 6540. Nothing under you but concrete. Maybe you got a ghost pad," I said. "Wrong cable, bad calibration." He gave me a look that said it wasn't funny. "We'll have maintenance look at it. For tonight, I'm not writing you up on a glitch we can't replicate on the ground. I'm marking this as equipment error and letting you roll. But get that gross checked on a cat at the next truck stop. If you're actually heavy and something happens, that permit won't save you." I signed where he pointed. The ticket slipped into his stack, another piece of paper in a system that already had too many. Back in the cab, the heater had taken the chill off. I sat with my hands on the wheel for a minute before I turned the key. The steering wheel vibrated faintly under my fingers from the idling engine. Nothing felt out of place. I pulled out of the scale, slid back onto the highway, and headed toward the next truck stop like he'd suggested. The road stretched ahead. Blacktop, reflective dots, green signs. Normal. Except it didn't quite feel normal. Every time I hit a bump, there was an extra shudder in the frame, a little aftershock that rolled under the trailer a half-second later. Not big, not violent, just delayed, like something heavier than air was catching up. I watched the gauges. Air pressure, good. Suspension load gauge bounced where I expected it to. Tires in the mirror looked fine, sidewalls flexing just right under the weight. The CB crackled now and then with other drivers talking about weather farther up the line. Nobody mentioned weird scales. Nobody said a word about phantom axles. At the truck stop, I rolled onto the cat scale, hit the call button, and waited for the disembodied voice. "Brake. We'll get your weight." Printer word inside. I pulled forward, parked, walked in under that particular mix of smells that all truck stops have at midnight. Fryer grease, coffee, and a hint of antifreeze. The kid behind the counter handed me my ticket without looking up from his phone. "Here you go, boss." I checked the numbers. Steers, 12,140 drives, 34,100 trailer, 35,720 gross, 81,960. That put me just under my permitted 82,000. No mystery axles, no extra groups, just what the scale at the mill had said at the start. You guys ever have weird pad readings? I asked the kid. Like, extra axle groups show up? He shrugged. If the truck's got a lift axle or spread, sometimes it's funky. But if you mean like, imaginary, he snorted. Nah, our junk's old, but not haunted. I stuffed the ticket in my logbook and went back to the lot. I should have slept then. Shut it down, climbed into the bunk, let the hum of other trucks lull me out. Instead, I rolled on. Something about the way that state scale had insisted I was dragging an extra set of wheels behind me made my skin crawl. I just wanted distance. Hours later, somewhere between nothing towns, I pulled into a rest area. Not a big one, just a couple of truck slots, a bathroom building with buzzing lights, and a few picnic tables no one used at night. I parked at the far end of the truck line, nose out, backing my flatbed in until I felt the soft bump of concrete will stop. Set the brakes. Airside. Engine ticked. For a while, I sat there in the dark cab, hands resting on my thighs, listening to the quiet. A reefer 2 spots overcycled, fans whirring, then fell silent. Wind moved through the trees at the edge of the lot, bringing the smell of damp leaves and cold dirt. The scale ticket dug into my pocket like a stone. Finally, I got out. The night air hit me, cold enough to bite the inside of my nose. Gravel crunched under my boots. The rest area lighting was bad. 2 poles working, 1 flickering, 1 dead. My shadow stretched long and thin alongside the trailer. I grabbed my flashlight from the side box and started a walk around. Old habit. Check your loads before you sleep. Make sure the world's not plotting against you. Tarp edges were still snug. Bungees tight. Chains had settled a hair, but nothing a binder tweak in the morning wouldn't fix. Tires looked good. No bulges, no flats. Mud flaps hanging where they ought to. I crouched near the back to look under the trailer, beam cutting a stripe of light along the gravel and dirt. That's when I saw them. At first, I thought it was just tire impressions, ruts where I'd backed in, the usual pattern of duals crushing the gravel. But the more I looked, the more I realized the dual tracks were easy to pick out. 2 wide, clean arcs where the rubber had rolled. These were something else. Dozens of narrow, parallel grooves in the dirt, perfectly spaced, each about as wide as a finger. They ran in sets, side by side, all aligned in the direction I'd come from. Not round like tracks, scrapes. They started just under the midpoint of the trailer and continued toward the back, faint near the front, deeper under the rear tandems where the weight pressed down harder. I moved the beam back and forth, following them. The grooves were tight together, too tight for human steps. Too many in each cluster. No heel marks, no tread, just those lines. Like something with a lot of legs had been clinging under the trailer, keeping pace as I rolled down the highway. The thought dropped into my mind uninvited and settled there like a cold rock. I shifted the light farther forward. Between the trailer and the frame, the underside of the deck was a forest of cross members and cables, all catching bits of dust and grease. On a couple of cross members, I saw more marks. Not from chains or straps, wrong angle. Tiny crescents scratched into the metal in rows, like claws testing for purchase. The night seemed to press closer, the sound of the distant highway fading under the sudden roar of my own heartbeat in my ears. I stayed there longer than I should have, crouched by my mud flap, light sweeping under the trailer, half expecting to catch a glimpse of something moving. Every shadow became more than it was. Every dangling airline looked like a limb. Nothing moved. Finally, I stood up, joints popping. My breath hung in front of my face, pale in the flashlight beam. I backed away from the trailer, one slow step at a time, keeping the underside in view until I reached my ladder. In the cab, I locked both doors out of habit, then out of something deeper. The bunk felt smaller than usual, the walls of the sleeper closer. I left the TV off and the CB volume down low, just enough to hear if someone keyed up nearby. Sometime after dawn, I woke to the sound of a trash truck in the car lot and the vibration of another rig pulling in beside me. The light outside was normal again. Blue sky, thin clouds, birds hopping in the grass strip beyond the pavement. I climbed down and checked under the trailer in daylight. Wind had scuffed some of the gravel around, but the grooves were still there, faint now. Too many, too straight, too deliberate to be from rocks or runoff. A maintenance guy pushing a trash cart gave me a sideways look as he passed. "You lose something under there?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Sleep." He chuckled and kept walking. Back on the highway, my phone buzzed with a text from a buddy who runs the same lanes. "You hit that northbound scale last night?" he wrote. "Heard they shut a lane down. Some glitch in the system. Said it was reading extra axles on guys. Maintenance swears the pads are fine. Whole house spooked." I stared at the message for a long time before I answered with a lie. "Skipped it," I typed. "Took a different route. I still haul coils from that mill. Still run over that scale more often than not. They say they fixed the software bug. No more phantom axle group 4 on the printouts. But every time I ease onto those pads, I feel that flutter in the frame, that half-second drag like something is remembering how it used to ride with me. And when I walk my truck at night now, flashlight beam cutting under the trailer, I don't just look for leaks and loose straps. I look for grooves, because that 13th axle never showed up on any CAT scale. Only under state lights, where something old and heavy got counted even if no one could see it. And I can't shake the feeling it's still out here, waiting for another flatbed to hook onto. Something it can grab from underneath and follow, mile after mile, where the weight reads wrong and the ground keeps score. I've picked up freight from plenty of rough terminals. Skeleton crews, busted lights, forklifts that sound like they're dying every time they reverse. But I'd never pulled into anything that felt dead before that night outside Dayton. It was 11:47 p.m. when my ELD pinged. New load assignment, high priority, military delivery, good rate, too good for a midnight run. I accepted anyway. I'd been awake too long already, eyes gritty, cab warm with that smell of diesel-soaked jacket and cheap coffee. I figured I'd grab the trailer quick, hit the interstate, and ride the night quiet to Kentucky. The GPS routed me through the industrial outskirts. Rows of dead factories, busted windows, streetlights dark or flickering. The kind of road where the air feels colder than the weather says it should be. My headlights swept over spray-painted walls and empty loading docks covered in snow that hadn't been touched by tire tracks. The terminal appeared at the end of the road like a forgotten tomb. Gate half open, chain rusted, snow perfectly smooth behind it. I rolled in at idle, my engine the only thing making noise in a place big enough to swallow it whole. No trucks, no spotters, no glow from an office window. Just a row of ancient dock doors with faded company logos I hadn't seen since my first year on the road. My phone vibrated. Dispatch call. I answered. "Yard's dead," I said. "You sure this place is running nights?" A flat voice replied, "Dock 7. Trailers preloaded. Papers are in the box." The way he said it, it sounded like a voicemail from 10 years ago. Those crushed, slightly hollow syllables. But when I asked, "Is this a drop-and hook or live unload on base?" the answer came immediately. Hook and go. So not a recording. Still, something felt wrong. My breath hung in the air as I walked along the dock, boots crunching in untouched snow. Under Dock 7's weak lamp sat a single 53-foot dry van. Backed straight, chalk still snug at the tires. The trailer number matched the app. The metal mailbox by the personnel door was coated in dust. But inside it, the stack of bills was clean, crisp, printed yesterday. Weight 12,000 pounds. Cargo, classified equipment. I hooked up, did my tug test. The kingpin locked, the airline snapped in fine. But when the suspension took the weight, my truck dropped harder than a 12,000-pound load ever should. "Feels heavy?" I muttered to myself. "Too heavy." The yard stayed silent. My truck idled like it didn't want to be there. Snow still unbroken around the trailer. It was like the load had appeared without ever being touched by human hands. But I was tired, and the military doesn't like late freight, so I rolled. Empty in a way highways don't get. Not even at 2 a.m. Not a single set of taillights. No oncoming headlights for miles. Even the CB was quiet, Channel 19 dead except for the soft hiss of static. The trailer pulled dense behind me. Every bump felt multiplied, like weight was shifting inside even though the paperwork said the load was small and secured. 20 miles in, I stopped at a fuel island to grab coffee. A driver fueling his flatbed watched me roll in. "Damn," he said, squinting at my trailer. "Didn't think anybody still pulled for them." I frowned. "For who?" He pointed at the faded company logo on my trailer's rear door. "That outfit shut down 10 years ago. Terminal burned to the ground, Dayton 1 especially. Whole place went up." I laughed. It didn't feel funny. "Brother, I just hooked to that trailer an hour ago." He shook his head slowly. "Not unless you hooked it from a crater." I pulled the bills from my jacket pocket and handed them over. He read the company name. His face fell. "That's them," he whispered. "That's the carrier that went bankrupt. They don't exist anymore." The hairs on my arms rose under my jacket. My mouth went dry. "Someone's using their MC," I said. "Paperwork's fresh." He handed the papers back with 2 fingers, like he didn't want to touch them. "Get rid of that load," he muttered. "Ain't nothing good about dead companies running freight." I went back to the cab. My steering wheel felt colder than before. I hit the button on my steering wheel. Dialing dispatch. The call connected. Static ripped through my speakers. A deep, scratchy roar like the line was underwater. Then silence. Then a different voice, same number, answered. "Dispatch," he said. His tone was normal, alive, human in a way the first voice hadn't been. "This is driver 618, I said. I picked up the Dayton load. The trailer's heavy, paperwork weird. "What's inside this thing?" A pause. "What load?" he asked. "The classified run," I said. "Midnight pickup." "We don't have a midnight dispatcher," he said. "Not anymore." My mouth went dry. "Someone gave me this job." He exhaled slowly. "Our night dispatcher died 6 months ago." I didn't answer. "You okay, driver?" "No," I said. "Not really. Where are you now?" I looked in my mirrors. The darkness behind my trailer seemed dense, like it had weight, like something was riding right up against my doors. The truck vibrated not from the engine, but from the trailer. A deep, steady thrum, something shifting inside. "Driver?" the dispatcher repeated. "I need to check something," I whispered. I pulled into a truck stop with bright lights and cameras. Parked under the canopy. Set the brakes. My truck felt too light suddenly, like whatever weight had been dragging me down the interstate was gone. I stepped out. The snow behind my trailer wasn't untouched anymore. Something had been pacing behind it. Long tracks, dragging marks, like weight pressed into the ground by something that didn't quite walk right. My gloves shook on my hands as I broke the seal. The rear doors groaned open. Inside was darkness. Not normal trailer darkness, but thick, velvet black that my flashlight barely punched through. The beam trembled. The pallets were all in place. No straps missing. No freight shifted. But the walls, God, the inside walls were bent outward. Slight bulges in the aluminum, as if something had pushed from the inside, testing its strength. The scuff marks weren't from pallets. They were from fingers, long ones, pressed into the dust in perfect parallel lines, dragging down toward the floor. Something had held onto the inside walls while the trailer moved. Not riding, clinging, like it wasn't meant to be moved in a box made for freight. I shut the doors, resealed them, walked back to the cab without breathing. I didn't deliver the load, didn't call dispatch again. I dropped the entire trailer in a brightly lit yard with security cameras and didn't explain a thing. If the military wanted it, they could come get it themselves. I don't run after midnight pickups from coordinates anymore. I don't trust new load assignments. And I don't answer calls from numbers I know but voices I don't. Because sometimes a closed terminal is closed for a reason. Sometimes the freight that waits in the dark isn't freight at all. I've hauled out of a lot of grimy places at stupid hours, but that cannery, that one got under my skin in a way I still feel when I hit accept on a cheap broker load. Name's Eric. I run nights mostly, Midwest loops, frozen stuff, Ken stuff, anything that pays enough not to deadhead too far. I've been in a sleeper cab more than my own bed the last 15 years. You see enough docks at 2 a.m., they all blur together. Except this one. It was a Thursday into Friday, late fall. Air had that wet chill to it just above freezing, where the road stays slick and the breath fogs even inside the cab if you don't keep the defrost on. I dropped a load at a distribution center outside Indianapolis and was about to bounce empty for a morning pickup when my phone buzzed. Broker. Easy live load. Canned vegetables. Midnight appointment 175 miles. Rate's not great, but it's on your way. Rate was trash. My clock was ticking. The idea of running empty all night didn't sit right. I took it. He sent coordinates and an exit number. No street address. That was my first flag. I ignored it. Off the interstate, the frontage road ran parallel for a while, then peeled off under a bridge and into older country. The newer warehouses gave way to brick shells with boarded windows, old smokestacks, sagging chain link. My headlights caught faded painted signs on the bricks, brands from my grandparents' generation. The cannery sat tucked at the end of a barely marked side road, half hidden behind bare trees and blackberry vines. Big concrete box of a building, most of the windows dark. A couple of sodium vapor lights glowed in back, weak orange halos in the mist. One loading dock door was open, a black gap in a row of closed, crooked ones. It really did look like a mouth with one rotted-out tooth. I rolled into the cracked lot, the trailer rattling over potholes. No yard truck, no forklifts buzzing, no security guard stepping out of a shack with a clipboard. Just my engine echoing off crumbling concrete and the soft hiss of my air dryer purging. The dock they'd assigned was painted Dock 3 in peeling blue. The bumper guards were chewed up, rubber half gone, bare metal showing through where too many trailers had kissed too hard. I set up and backed in, window rolled down to hear the dock. My reverse beeper chirped into a silence so big it swallowed the sound. When the trailer finally bumped the dock, it was a dull, soft thud. No shout, no flashlight waving me off, no hand signals. Just the dock lock engaging with a distant clank. I set the brake. Air side out, the truck rocking slightly as the suspension relaxed. In my mirrors, the dock door behind me stayed shut. Steel slats pulled all the way down. No one popped it. No forklift nose appeared. The only movement was my own exhaust drifting in the cold. I flipped my interior lights off and waited. 5 minutes. 10. I listened for the usual cues. The metallic rattle of a dock plate dropping, the whine of a pallet jack, shouts between workers. Nothing. Even the CB on 19 was a low hiss. My cab smelled like burnt coffee and road dust, the defroster humming softly against the windshield. Then the trailer rocked. Hard. It wasn't the little shimmy you get when someone nudges you with a forklift. It felt like somebody had taken a pallet of cans and dropped it from 3 feet up dead center. The shock came up through the frame into my seat, rattling the junk in my door pockets. I snapped my eyes to the mirrors. Dock door was still down. No gap at the bottom. No forklift lights bleeding around the sides. Yard stayed empty under the orange lamps. I told myself it was just the dock plate slamming. Old place like this, everything creaks, I muttered. The trailer swayed again. Slower this time, like something heavy inside was rolling its weight from one side to the other, then back again. Metal groaned. I heard the faint stretch pop of my suspension bushings. The chains in my side box chimed against one another. I thought about pulling out, refusing the load, calling the broker and telling him to eat it. But a refused load hits your standings, and I'd had a slow month. Give him time, I told myself. Probably some old guy on a busted lift trying not to tip a pallet. It went on for 20 minutes. Not constant. Just enough that every time I started to relax, another slow sway rolled through the cab. My fingers stayed curled around the wheel. My coffee went cold in the cup holder. At some point, the dock light at the back of the trailer flipped from red to green. No horn. No knock. Just the signal, you're loaded, get out. A metal clipboard appeared at my window. The arm holding it came through the gap between tractor and wall from somewhere along the side of the cab. I hadn't heard footsteps on the gravel, hadn't seen anyone in the mirror. "Here," a voice said. Low, rough, close enough I should have seen a face, but the angle was all wrong, just sleeve and glove. I cranked the window down a couple inches and took the clipboard. The hand withdrew immediately, back into the shadow between my cab and the building. I glanced at the bills. Consignee, some big box retailer. Shipper, cannery name I didn't recognize, like the kind you only see on the bottom shelf. Cargo, canned goods, mixed vegetables, 41,000 lb. Time in 002. Time out 026. No seal number filled in. Someone had scribbled one in after the fact at the bottom in a different pen. I looked back up to ask about the seal, but the space next to my truck was empty. No dock worker walking away. No open side door. Flickering orange light, cracked concrete, and the breath of my own exhaust. That was it. Green lights, green light. I pulled out. The lock let go with a hollow clunk. The truck lurched forward. I felt the weight immediately. Flatbed heavy, the kind that settles onto your frame and rides like a boat anchor. Out on the frontage road, I eased her through the gears. The trailer felt wrong. Loads shift. You feel a lean if something slides, a tug when it's high and wants to tip. This wasn't that. Every time I changed lanes, the whole rig would resist the movement for a heartbeat, then overshoot slightly, like the weight inside didn't want to go where the tractor was pointing, and then overcompensated. The wheel talked to me. There's a certain way it vibrates when your tandems are light on one side, when you hit crosswind, when you've got a bad tire. This was different. A slow, almost breathing push against my hands. Steam rose off the road in thin sheets as I merged back onto the interstate. The sky was low and full of clouds, orange glow from the city reflecting off the underside. My headlights carved a yellow cone in front of me, reaching out to find the next green sign. I settled into the right lane at just under the limit. Engine hummed steady, touch right where I wanted it. Everything on the dash looked normal. The CB was quiet, too quiet. No one complaining about scales or speed traps. No distant chatter from guys 20 miles up. Just static, smooth and low. 20 miles in, the rig shuddered hard enough that my teeth clicked together. It felt like something inside the box had thrown its whole weight against the passenger side wall. The trailer flexed, the tractor yawed a couple of inches, and I had to correct with a quick countersteer to keep from drifting toward the shoulder. "Damn it," I hissed. They didn't strap that right. On a heavy canned load like this, they're supposed to stagger and band the pallets. I pictured some understaffed night crew just pushing shrink-wrap towers in as fast as possible. I white-knuckled it another half hour. Every curve, every lane change, I could feel that invisible weight fighting the motion, like thick liquid in a half-full tank. But this was solid freight, or should have been. My palms were slick by the time I saw the blue sign for a rest area. I took it without thinking, turn signal clicking loud in the quiet cab. The rest area was small, a patch of asphalt and a bathroom building under humming lights. One other truck sat way down at the end, curtains drawn. I parked near the entrance, nose out for a quick escape, trailer squared in the slot. When I set the brakes, the truck shifted one last time, a little aftershock rolling through the springs. I sat there for a minute, breathing. Company policy says don't break a seal unless you have to. DOT hates it when paperwork doesn't match reality. Brokers hate it more. But I'd rather deal with an angry dispatcher than flip a truck in the dark because someone screwed up a load. I grabbed my flashlight and climbed down. The air hit me cold and damp, smelling like wet pavement and pine from the tree line. The sodium vapor lights gave everything that sick yellow color. Gravel crunched under my boots as I walked to the back of the trailer. The seal was there. Thin strip of metal, number stamped cleanly into it. It didn't look like the scribble on my bills. That bothered me in a way I couldn't quite name. I cut it anyway. The snip of the bolt cutters sounded too loud. Lock spun, bars swung. I grabbed the right door handle and pulled. Hinges complained, metal grinding against metal. Cold air spilled out, tinged with the sharp smell of tin and brine and whatever preservative they pump into cheap canned vegetables. It rode over a lower, heavier scent, something like damp cardboard and iron. I swung the left door next. The trailer's interior light flicked on, weak yellow bulb revealing neat rows of pallets, shrink-wrapped tight. Stacks of cans from floor to almost roof, labeled with off-brand peas, carrots, mixed vegetables. Banding straps crossed each pallet. Nothing obviously out of place. I stepped up onto the bumper, boots scraping the metal. The steel frame thrummed faintly under me, cooling from the run. The air inside felt a couple degrees warmer than outside, breath of stale warehouse trapped in an aluminum box. I swept my flashlight beam along the near pallets. The plastic wrap was tight against the cans, no gaps where something could have slid. The cans themselves were in perfect grids, labels aligned, barcode squares catching the light. "Looks fine," I muttered. "Maybe I'm just tired." Then, from somewhere deeper in the trailer, between the rows I couldn't see past without climbing in, I heard it. A sound like someone trying to breathe through water. Wet, ragged. Inhale that rattled, exhale that seemed to drag across something. My skin went cold under my jacket. The sound came again, a little closer, accompanied by a scrape. Not the sharp squeal of metal on metal. Softer, a dry drag like fingernails, too many fingernails, tracing lazy patterns across tin. I held my own breath without meaning to. The flashlight felt heavier in my hand. The beam wobbled, catching on the glint of cantops, the hard edges of wooden pallets, the dusty aluminum of the bulkhead. "Hello," I said before I could stop myself. My voice sounded small inside the trailer. The breathing paused. For a terrible second, the silence pressed in so hard my ears rang. Then my flashlight flickered. Once, twice. The beam narrowed, then bloomed wide, then narrowed again like the batteries were being squeezed. Between flashes, something moved behind the pallets. Not a clear shape, just the sense of mass shifting like a large body adjusting in a too small space. The scrape of nails on tin turned into a slow, deliberate tapping. Left to right, up and down, like fingers walking along stacked metal. My flashlight jerked to the right on its own. I didn't move my wrist. The beam just swung. It landed on the rear pallet, the one closest to me. One can on the very top row started to turn. Slowly. There was no slope, no vibration. The rest of the stack stayed perfectly still. But that one can rotated as if an invisible hand was twisting it. The label peeled as it turned, paper lifting and curling back like skin coming away from flesh. Underneath, the aluminum shone dully. The picture of cartoon-bright vegetables tore, revealing a gray underlay stain darker in places. The breathing came again, right up near the front now. It sounded like it was just on the other side of the pallet wall. The plastic wrap trembled, a subtle shiver running vertically, like something behind it had exhaled into the gaps between cans. My flashlight died. Not a gentle dim. Cut. 1 second. Glint of tin, that turning can, label halfway stripped. Next second. Black. Thick. Perfect. Behind the black, the breathing hitched. The nails dragged slow across the cans near my feet. I felt the vibration of it through the trailer floor, into my boots. I don't remember climbing down. 1 second I was frozen there at the bumper, hand locked around dead plastic. The next my boots were hitting asphalt and I was swinging the doors closed so hard the metal boomed. The latches slammed home. My fingers fumbled with the lock bar until it seated. The night air felt colder now, biting the sweat on my face. I realized my heart was pounding so hard my chest hurt. I didn't reseal the trailer. I didn't write anything on the bills. I climbed back into the cab, locked the doors, and sat there with the interior lights off, watching my mirrors. The rest area was quiet. The other truck might as well have been an empty shell. In the mirror, my own taillights glowed red against the trailer doors. For just a second, I thought I saw the doors bulge outward, the metal flexing in a slow pulse like something inside had pressed lightly against them. Then it was gone. The truck ran fine the rest of the night. The load still felt off, but I didn't stop again. I took it straight to the receiver, backed into their dock, and dropped it like it was radioactive. They signed the bills. No shortage, no damage noted. Just another overweight cheap canned load disappearing into a warehouse. A week later, killing time on my phone, I thought about that cannery. Tried to pull it up on maps. The pin the broker had sent me resolved into an empty gray lot. Street view cut off half a mile up the road. No building. No sign. I called the broker's number. Straight to voicemail on a generic line. I haven't taken a live load at a cannery since. I'll pull anything else in the middle of the night, reefer, steel, cheap junk freight. But if the rate looks bad and the place looks half abandoned from the satellite view, I'll deadhead instead. Because I know what it feels like now when a trailer rocks in a way that doesn't match the freight. And I know what goods are supposed to sound like when they shift. They don't breathe.